The wet autumn leaves clung to her for rain, had soaked her to the bone. She was shivering alone, barely able to lift her head, and yet she kept calling. A faint broken sound over and over again. She was a bobcat kitten, no older than 5 months. She lay beneath a rotting tree stump, not afraid she was too cold, torn, too weak to care. A scratch marked her front leg. Her belly was dirty and bruised. There were small punctures, maybe from teeth. Something had attacked her, or maybe she had simply been left behind. Joan, who lived at the edge of the Oregon woods, stepped out that evening. After hearing a sound, it was faint, like a bird or something crying. She paused at the edge of her porch, listening there. It was Sag, soft, broken, desperate. She followed sound with a flashlight, the beam cutting through drizzle and dying light, and then she saw them, 2 glowing eyes in the soaked underbrush, barely blinking. A small spotted body lay curled in through it leaves, not moving. Joan knelt down slowly, heart pounding. The little creature didn't flinch, didn't growl. She only looked up, as if asking for something: warmth, safety, a mother who wasn't coming back. Joan wrapped the kitten in a towel and carried her inside close to her chest. She could feel the tiny tremors through the fabric, shallow breaths, rapid heartbeat. The kitchen was warm, filled with the quiet hum of the fridge and the scent of boiling chamomile. Joan laid her gently on a blanket near the fireplace and called the local vet. "She's malnourished, dehydrated, and in shock," the vet said an hour later, kneeling beside her. "But there's no spinal trauma, no broken bones. She's lucky. If you hadn't found her tonight, she wouldn't have made it to morning." Joan watched as the vet placed a tiny fore under the kitten's skin. The little body didn't resist. "We'll call her Willow," Joan whispered, because she bent, but she didn't break. But Joan wasn't the only one watching. From the hallway, Marigold, the family stabby cat, stood motionless, her eyes locked on the bobcat, ears forward, tail still. Marigold had given birth to Twakatons just 3 weeks ago. Finn and Millaware curled up in the laundry basket, still too small to climb out. Joan Movetto closed the door, but Marigold stepped in. She walked slowly toward the blanket. The bobcat raised her head weakly. Her ears flicked once, and then something no one expected happened. Marigold sat beside her. She sniffed Willow's facet and leaned in and began to lick. Her head slowed, gentle strokes like she did with her own. Joan covered her mouth. She could feel tears rising before she understood why. Willow, for the first time, closed her eyes. Her body stopped shaking, and just for a moment she looked like an kitten, safe. Wanted home by morning. Willow was still curled on the blanket, but she wasn't alone. Marigold had brought her kittens, Finn and Milo, and nestled them beside the bobcat during the night. Willow didn't move much. Her strength hadn't returned yet, but when Milo let out a tiny squeak, Willow shifted closer, placing one of her large paws protectively over him. Joan watched from the kitchen doorway, holding a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. "They think she's theirs," she whispered to herself, "and maybe she thinks the same." Over the next few days, something extrendi unfolded. Willow, Thostel weak, began responding to 30 thems of the house. She didn't growl or hiss. She didn't pace the doors trying to escape. Instead, she watched, she listened, and she mimicked when Marigold went to eat. Willow followed when the kitten kissed string. Willow watched, then clumsily joined in, and when the kittens climbed into their soft crate to sleep, Willow curled up beside them, her long limbs awkwardly folded, her breath sinking with theirs. One evening, Joan sat beside them with her phone, recording. Marigold was bathing Willow's ears, and the bobcat was purring. It's not the approtated rumble of a wildcat, but soft, uncertain, almost like she was still learning how. And then came the sound that changed everything. A meow, high-pitched, unsure, barely more than a whisper. Willow had mimicked the kitten. She meowed once, then again. Joan's hands trembled as she pressed stop on the video. She didn't know what this meant yet, but she knew this wasn't just survival. Willow wasn't just recovering. She was becoming part of something she never had: a family. The days grew shorter. Rain tapped gently against the windows most afternoons, and the smell of damp leaves clung to every corner of the house. Inside, life settled into a new rhythm. Willow followed thecatons everywhere. She mimicked thy reverie move, tentative at first, then bolder. Learned how to chase string, how to bat at crumpled paper balls. She pounced, tumbled, and leaped. though still a little awkward in her longer limbs. Inth mornings all three would sit on Thuendausel, pressed together like a stripe of fur-gray tawny and spotted there. Eyes followed squirrels and birds through the misty trees. Joan began filming them. More often she couldn't help it, something about the way Willow waited for the kittens to fall asleep before curling around them, made her heart ache. But one day, just before dusk, the spell broke. Joan had left the back door open for a moment, just long enough to carry in firewood. That's when it happened. A neighbor's dog, large unfamiliar, slipped into the yard, a Labrador mix off-leash, curious, sniffing. Joan froze in the doorway as the dog spotted the kittens, who were huddled near their crate on the porch. He trotted forward, tail wagging but fast. Too fast then, without warning, Willow stepped in. She moved between the dog and Thekatons with a suddenness that made Joan gasp, her body low, her back arched. Every hair standing on end, she let out a guttural, primal growl, low to punchable. The dog skidded to a halt 1 second too, and then backed away, let down, quiet. Joan rushed forward, slamming the door behind her, but Willow didn't flinch. She stayed there, standing guard until the last sound of paws on gravel faded into the trees. Only then did she turn back to the crate, lower her head and gently nudge the kittens inside. Joan knelt beside her, stroking the space. Between her ears, she's not wild, she whispered. Their sister and their protector. It happened 3 days later. Joan was outside, pruning the last of the hydrangeas, when she saw the truck pull up. White official emblazed with the crest off Oregon Wildlife Control. To officer stepped out, calm but direct. One held a clipboard, the other had a transport crate. We received a report. The woman said there's been a sighting of a juvenile bobcat kept inside a privateer. Silence. Joan's stomach turned cold. Shouldn't have to ask who made the call. Then Aber had seen the dog incident. He hadn't seen the way it ended. She's no to threat. Joan said she lives with our cat. She sleeps with kittens. She doesn't thunt. She doesn't growl. She purr. The officers listened politely, but their eyes drifted to the porch, where Willow sat beside the crate. Marigold to her left, the kittens to her right. She's become their sister. Joan continued, her voice rising. She's not wild anymore, she's family, but protocol had no place for that kind of truth. I'm sorry, ma'am, man said quietly. She's still a wild species, and under the law she can't be raised in a home. They approached. Slowly Willow stood as they neared, unsure, looking back toward Joan, then softly Margold stepped in front of her, pressing her head into Willow's chest. Joan reached out, tears rising in her throat. She won't survive without them. Shepley did she break, but it was no use. They placed Willow inside the crate. She didn't struggle, she didn't make a sound. Only her eyes followed the house quiet lintel. It was gone. That night Margold searched the rooms. She paced, tail flicking, ears twitching. She stopped at the back door and cried long, low. Mia Cinto, the dark Finn and Milo didn't leave it there. Crate, they huddled together, fusing food. The house felt hollow, like something vital had been torn from it a week past. The silence in the house, Beckham, unbearable. Joan moved through their rooms like a ghost. The kittens barely played. Marigold sat by the window 4 hours, ears flicking at every sound, as if waiting for a voice she could no longer hear. Then the call came. It was Thorold Life Center. A young technician spoke softly, unsure how much to say. Wivotry different feeds warmed her Kratovan, left her toys, but she won't eat. She won't interact. She just paces. Joan's heart clenched. She scratches the some spot on the wall every night. The technician continued, always the same spot. It's like she's trying to dig her way out. They said she was introgressive not once, but she was entrusting to anything. She was shutting down. We think she's depressed. They said honestly, we're worried she might give up. Joan didn't hesitate. Can I see her? They agreed to a supervised visit. No promises, no guarantees, just a window of time. The next morning, Joan packed the car. She didn't come alone. Marigold sat quietly in a carrier, and the kittens mewed softly beside her. Thorold Life Center was quiet, clean, cold. They led her to an outdoor enclosure surrounded by chain-link fence and silent trees. Willow sat in the far corner, motionless, her back to the world. Shadow sent come to the front anymore. The technician said she hasn't responded. Tanyan. Joan stepped closer, and then Milo meowed. It was small, barely audible, but Willow heard it. Her ears twitched, her head turned, and then she stood not slowly, not with hesitation. She ran straight to Thiefens, straight to the sound, straight Totham she pressed. Her body against the wire nose. With the kittens, her tail trembled, her sides heaved, and from her throat came a sound none of them had ever heard from her before. A soft, high-pitched chirp. She wasn't wild Notana more. She remembered she had not forgotten. Who her family was. The meeting was quiet but tense. Jones sat across from two center officials and the attending Vought. She showed them the videos, Willow playing with the kittens, grooming them, sleeping curled around them. She told them what the technician had said. She's not adjusting because she's not meant Tobe alone. Jones said, you took her from her family. The vet leaned forward. Legally, she's still a wild animal, but behaviorally she's something different. She's bonded. A decision was made. Temporary release, conditional supervised. Willow would return to Jones' home for a 30-day evaluation period. They'd monitor her behavior, her health, her ability to adjust if anything changed. If she showed signs of aggression or distress, she would will to come back. Joan didn't care. All that mattered was bringing her home. They'd vening as the carrier door opened. In the familiar hallway, Willow didn't bolt, she didn't pause. She walked forward, collie sniffed the air, and went strato the crate. Finn and Milo were waiting. She lowered her head into the bedding and touched noses with both of them. Thench lay down, not beside the crate, but in front of it, facing the door, watching, guarding. That entire night, she never once closed her eyes. She sat upright, still, ears twitching at every creak and shift in the house. She wasn't tired. She was home and she was on watch by morning. Joan found her gently nudging a worn sock into the crate next to it. A small plastic mouse chewed and frayed. Milla pounced on the toy with a squeak. Finn dragged the sock into the bedding like a treasure. Willow sat back, satisfied. Ladder that day, a camera in the corner of their room captured a still frame that Joan would print and hang on her wall. 3 kittens curled in a tight ball. 2 Smallones spotted, all breathing in sync, pressed together. It's like they'd never be in a part base. They hadn't not really thought followed. It felt like a slow exhale, like something long held in the lungs. Was finally release. Willow was different now, not in instinct, but in certainty. She no longer moved with hesitation. She didn't hover on the edges of rooms or linger near windows. She belonged here, and she knew it. When the kittens played, she joined them, not to copy, but to lead. She showed them how to pounce silently, how to climb the fabric of the armchair without falling, how to crouch low behind table legs, and spring with precision. Marigold watched it all with calm acceptance. She never interfered. Only sometimes, after a chaste walk over and rub her face against Willow's in a quiet gesture of approval. Then, one morning, something happened. Joan had cracked the back door open just for a moment, letting in the scent of damp earth and pine in that single breath. Oh, fair. Finn slipped through, quick, silent gone. Panic set in. Joan raced to the door, calling his name. Marigold darted out, citadel, twitching in alarm. But Willow didn't hesitate. She dropped low to the ground, nose to the wood, following Theffin's trace. Then she bolted through. Yard around the shed, across the mossy stone wall, and into the tressminutes past. Then 5 more. Joan's voice broke as she called again and again, and then movement from the brush came. Willow carefully, gently, she held Finn by the scruff, just like a mother cat would. His paws dangled, eyes widened. She brought him to the porch and placed him gently in the crate, then turned and sat in front of it. Guarding Goon, Joan dropped to her knees, hand shaken. She didn't just find him, she whispered, she brought him home. That night, as rain fell in soft sheets across the roof, the family lay together, and through her light of the living room, Willamara, Gold, Finn, Milo, no space between them, no doubt. She wasn't pretending, she wasn't learning, she was living what she had chosen. To become a sister, a guardiana, part of something real. 3 weeks had passed since Willow came home. The house was full again, full of soft footsteps, playful chirps, and the quiet rustle of kittens. Wrestling across rugs, Willow the bobcat no longer moved like a guest. She stretched in sunbeams, she waited at the food bowls. She yawned when the kittens climbed over her back. Every evening Jones submitted reports to Wildlife Department. Videos, journals, behavior updates, and then came the visit. A biologist arrived, sent by the department to evaluate the situation firsthand. He was cautious, professional, carry a clipboard, and wearing an unreadable expression. He sat down quietly in the living room across from him. Willow lay on the rug with Finn cured beneath. Her chin Milo was batting it at her tail. The man didn't speak for a long while. He just watched, then Margold entered the room. She walked out straight up to Willow and began grooming her the way a mother grooms her, in Kitten's slow, deliberate strokes. Along ears and cheeks, Willow leaned into eyes half closed. The biologist glanced at. "Joan is that typical everyday Joan," said softly. He stood and slowly walked around them. Willow didn't flinch. She only lifted her head for a moment to check on the kittens, then settled back down. "She's not showing stress," behavior murmured. "No pacing, no avoidance, no signs of defensive posture," he medineth her. "Note she's a bobcat? Yes, but what I see is a bonded animal. She's not surviving here. She's attached. She's socializing." Like a kitten raised with litter mates, he looked at the kitten curled against her belly, then at Margold, now lying beside them all. "3 species, 1 family unit," he said. Quietly before leaving, he paused at the door. "What happens when the temporary placement ends?" Joan looked over at the scene. In front of her 3 kittens breathing, in rhythm, 1 spotted, 2 striped. Her voice was steady. "She stays one way or another. She stays because of this. This is her home." Autumn turned tomter. The trees outside lost their leaves. But inside, the little house, mething stronger, had taken root. Willow no longer felt like a guest. She was weaving into every quiet moment, every playful sound, every nap beside the fire. She didn't just sleep with the kittens. She curled around them like a shield. She didn't just eat beside them. She waited until they were finished. She wasn't pretending to be part of their world. She was their world. Marigold shepherded her completely. She groomed her sons. She groomed Willow too, when sheckled them with her soft chirping meow. Willow came as well to the outside world. Willow was a bobcat, but here she was something else. She was a sister, a daughter, a guardian, and maybe in the way thought truly matters. She was a kitten. To love doesn't ask for names, it doesn't care about stripes or spots or where Yalbigon love is, who stays beside you when the world feels big. And family is who brings you home. If this story touched your heart, follow us sure at Hope and Fur, where every life, no matter how wild, deserves to be seen, protected, and loved.